Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining the webinar series put on by Halting Winter. Halting Winter exists to help executive leaders create company cultures that produce extraordinary results. We do that by helping develop leaders and by helping their employees find more life, purpose, meaning, worth, value in the work that they do, not only individually, but as a collective whole. So they show up and want to give their best. They show up and want to row towards a compelling mission, to be a part of a vision that inspires. So my name is Seth Winterhalter. I'm the president of Halting Winter. And I spent the first part of my professional life as a professional orchestral conductor. Uh, was a musician growing up, not really a classical musician. In fact, I was more of a kind of a pop rock musician. I played all the instruments, guitar, drums, piano, etc. And it wasn't until high school when I started singing in choirs and conducted the high school choir that I fell in love with conducting. There were some really compelling lessons in leadership I learned conducting. When it comes to leadership, I have observed working with CEOs over the past 2 years under the leadership of Halting Winter, and just my own leadership experience in working with very well known leaders throughout the nation and the world over the last 25 years. I have come to the conclusion that most of our problems in leadership are not vision, mission, strategy. In fact, I think that's usually the skill set. What allows you to become a leader is that you have a vision, you have a mission. You reverse engineer that to create a compelling strategy. Yes, those things can be touched up and tuned up, and sometimes they are the problem. There's not clarity there, there's not real commitment there. But most of the problems leaders encounter are not vision, mission, strategy. Most of the problems are people problems. We have different personalities that we're trying to lead. And nowadays we have different generations, and those generations have stark differences. Not only do you have different personalities you are trying to lead, you have generational realities, generational values, generational rhythms and routines that are radically different. And we have to lead in that. We have to lead through that. So you have all these different kind of people. You have the issue as a leader of being oftentimes feeling more like a firefighter. You're pulled into these problems and areas of drama and issue. And in fact, one of the issues, if you are a growing leader in a growing organization, one of the hardest things is to not only empower the other leaders around you, but to what's the word? Compel them to put on them not just the empowerment to dream and to lead, but to actually do their jobs. Confrontation, right? Communicating clearly, especially in conflict, is one of the hardest things for a leader to do. And one of the challenges in making sure that the leaders underneath you actually deal with the junk that arises. It just seems that oftentimes that gets pushed up and up and up. And so all of a sudden, the key leader of the organization, the CEO, the director, etc., is now faced with handling all this stuff that should have been handled by the people overseeing their teams, overseeing their departments. And so you have to have real tight clarity on what is your role? What are your responsibilities? And are you doing those with absolute clarity and doing them in a compelling way that's getting the people around you to follow? So how do we do that? That's what we're talking about today in the 3 tools of the conductor. There are 3 unique tools that an orchestral conductor has at their disposal. They're the 3 tools that no one else in the orchestra gets access to. These are for the conductor alone. Tool number 1 is the score. The conductor is the only one with the score. What is the score? The score is the book, the music book that has all of the parts in it. So if I showed you a score, we'd open it up and it'd say Symphony Number 5 by Beethoven. You're familiar. Dun 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 dun, bum 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 bum. And on that first page, it would have, in order of layout, it would have the woodwind section on top, which would be the flutes and the oboes, the clarinets, the bassoons. Then below the woodwinds, it would have brass section, your trumpet, trombones, right? Tuba. No, there's no tuba in Beethoven 5, but you get the picture. Then below that, you might have piano or harp if you have those instruments in the specific piece of music you're playing. Below that, you have the percussion instruments. And then below that, you have the strings, violins, violin one, two, viola, cello, bass. You have every individual part put out in their groupings, in their sections, to see the entire piece of music. Now, every other musician, you might not know this if you've never played in an orchestra, the other musicians only have their specific part. So if I look on the stand of the violinist, they only have the first violin part or the second violin part if they're a second violinist. The cellist only has the notes for the cello to play. They see nothing else. The percussionist only has the timpani notes or the bass drum notes. On and on and on throughout the entire orchestra. They only have their individual parts. And this is a good thing because it keeps them focused on the parts that they need to play, the notes that they specifically need to play. A good conductor, right? We're trying to create world-class conductors. You have three specific things with that score that you're doing. Not only do you have, it's not enough to just have the score, you have to use the score. In the score, a conductor has markings. They have markings for three primary things. First, the markings of tempo. Every piece will say, right, quarter note equals 60, 120, and it will tell you how fast or how slow the piece of music goes. But music doesn't have just one tempo. It will have multiple tempo markings throughout the piece, and you need to highlight these to make sure that you're conducting and leading in, right? You're slowing down when the piece changes, or you're speeding up. A great example of this is Shostakovich Symphony Number 5. Like it's just the whole beginning is just a tempo, a accelerando. It's moving, it has all this movement. You're just continuing, right? The conductor's continuing pushing the orchestra faster and faster and faster. The score has these markings. You need to know the tempo. And not only do you need to know, there will be specific markings in the tempo that tell you here's, it's 60 here, and then it goes to 80 here, and it goes to 88 here. But then you also have to let the music breathe, right? You just don't want to play it robotically. Oh, we're at 60, dun, dun, dun. Now we're at 88, dun, dun, dun. Like you want there to be movement and push and pull so that it has this sound. You need tempo. But you also need dynamics. When is it soft? When is it growing? When is it forte and loud and filling? When is the hammer strike and it's triple fortissimo? You have tempo and you have dynamics, the intimate sounds and the big, boomy, overwhelming sounds. There are dynamics throughout, and it's not just, again, oh, we play quiet and then we get loud and quiet and loud. No, no, no. There's movement between that. Crescendos and diminuendos. A piece of music needs movement, tempo wise, dynamic wise, but it needs the third thing, and that is phrasing. If I opened up one of the many scores that I used when I was an orchestral conductor, you would see phrase markings. And a phrase is a certain number of measures as a piece breathes. You could think about if a clarinetist had a solo. Well, they're not just going to play that solo with one long, gigantic breath. They're going to have breaths within it. And those breaths need to be taken at specific parts, at specific times, so that it has this rich sound to it. It'd be like if I'm speaking to you, and I'm just taking random breaths, like I'm going to breathe at the end of a statement. I'm not going to then breathe, and chop it up and sound chaotic. I'm going to wait until, and I might have these moments where it sounds like I'm about to breathe, but I'm not. I'm phrasing for dynamic effect. And then I breathe and continue, right? You have phrasings to a piece of music. So you have in this score, you see, I just broke down, a conductor has three things. It has tempo, dynamics, and phrasings. In a business, a leader should have the score, the vision for the organization, the specific mission that they're trying to accomplish within the year or two in the life of the company. So there's actual destination people are rowing to. You can't row to a vision. It's too big. It's too broad. It's like trying to row to heaven, right? There's no clear path to a vision. It's just this deep feeling of, yes, that's the utopia we want. That's the overall big vision we are trying to get to. We're trying to bring this to the world. Where a mission is actually accomplishable. It might be really large, it might be a bit intimidating and overwhelming, but it should be accomplishable. It should be realistic. It's clear. It has a definition, a destination. It can be reverse engineered to be able to get there. A piece of music, right? The vision for an orchestra is we want to inspire and motivate and have people enjoy their life through the arts, to enjoy and experience all of the emotions through this artistic expression. That's the vision. How do we do that? Well, the mission is we're going to do 7 concerts a year, 12 concerts a year, and we're going to have a Beethoven concert and a Mahler concert, and a new music concert. And you're the mission are these concerts, and you reverse engineer them to put specific pieces in them to create specific emotional, realities, experiences. Do you have that with your business? Do you have a score that's telling you exactly what the vision is, what the mission is, and have you reverse engineered it with tempo and dynamic and phrasings to make sure that you're not going to burn out your team? I think that's one of the problems with leaders. We get so gung ho about the mission that we don't think about phrasing. We don't really look at the year and go, okay, let's think about our customers and their buying and their habits and their attention. Let's think about our team and what it takes for product creation and follow up and follow through. Let's think about, like, you really have to reverse engineer the different components, and so that there's phrasing. Otherwise, it's like, here's the mission. We got to die on this hill and make it happen. And then it's just a full on sprint for a year or two and then repeat, and you wonder why there's burnout. You wonder why there's quiet quitting. It's because your pacing is impossible. You cannot run a marathon at a sprint pace. A marathon has to be right calculated. There has to be different tempo, different dynamics, different times for rest and refuel, and et cetera, et cetera. This is what the score allows you to do. A leader needs the score. They need to know how the parts are playing. And see, here's where, again, it's different for the parts, because the difference between a middle school orchestra and the New York Philharmonic. A middle school orchestra is basically, right, you just, everyone's quiet together, everyone's loud together, everyone's kind of playing the same, tempo, everyone's kind of has the same push and pull. You're kind of conducting everyone together. Whereas the New York Philharmonic, right, I'm bringing down the brass and I'm elevating the woodwinds. And I'm like, the dynamics within the New York Philharmonic are so in tune, so balanced, so that the melody is soaring and the harmonies are filling and supporting perfectly. This is what a true leader of a extraordinary company is doing. They are balancing all of the departments. They're making sure the dynamics and the tempo are all working together. They're making sure that the phrasing for the woodwinds doesn't necessarily have to match the phrasing for the strings. No, the strings get their own bow markings to make sure that they're supporting the phrasing of the woodwinds correctly. All these things. See, this is what the difference between a performance and a practice is. You may go to the New York Philharmonic performance and go, what's the conductor doing? Well, I'm telling you, they're not doing what they're doing in the practice. In practice, there is precision. In practice, right, the work you do behind the scenes as a leader is precision. You are rehearsing, you are dialing things in, you're getting the phrasing right, the dynamics right. This is what you're doing in meetings. You're making sure there's healthy communication, crystal clear communication, making sure that action plans are being done, that you're evaluating, you're learning from failure, you're all these things. And in the performance, right? Boom. In the launch of the product, in the right quarterly performance reviews, boom, all of a sudden now you're performing. The score. Do you have the score? You have to have the score. To then do the second thing is, have you marked it up? Are there markings in it? Do you clearly know how you're going to conduct all the parts and do what only you can do as the conductor? your specific role and responsibility. The second tool of the conductor is the podium. When they walk out from the wings of the stage, they come out, take a bow, and what do? They turn around and they put the score on their stand, and they stand up on the podium. And what is the podium? The podium is unique. No one else in the orchestra gets a podium, only the conductor. And what is the conductor doing with that podium? They are elevating themselves. Why? Because they're important, because they're the most popular? No, they're doing it to be seen. They need to be seen by all of the orchestra so that the orchestra can follow and stay in time and stay united in their vision for the piece of music. Again, all that work that you did in the score, the tempo, the dynamics, and the phrasings, now you're going to conduct. And if you're not able to be seen as you conduct, no one's going to be able to follow. So you need the podium. Now, how does this translate in a company? I would say it's two ways. Number one, people need to know where they can find you. People need to know where they can find you. And this is physically, right? Do you have an office space? Do you have certain times where you have, open door policy? How do they find you? How do your leaders specifically, right, know when they can get direction, clarity? Like, is there access to you to be able to do your job to lead, especially the leaders? I had a conversation this last year with a leader of a decent sized company. And we were talking about open door policy. It's one of the things that he wanted to just have an open door anytime people can talk to him. And I said, that's not healthy for you. You can't have an open door policy all the time because there are specific things you need to get done that you can't have these secondary distractions. I know you feel that they're primary because you want to create a very open space. You want to create an environment and a culture where people are supported. And I go, that's good, but you also have responsibilities. And so it's okay to have a closed door too, for people to know the door is closed. They're doing their job to do what only they can do to work on things that, right? You need time, if you're a conductor, to actually do the markings in the score. If you're interrupted every 5 seconds by someone with an issue, someone with a thought, you're never going to do the work that only you can do to mark up that score correctly, to lead the rehearsals, to actually lead the performance. So you need to figure out that rhythm and that routine. When are you going to have open door policy? When's your door going to be open? And when's it going to be closed? The podium is the same. Like, people need to know where they can come to you, when they can get their feedback, when they can get direction. But it's not just about coming into your office, it's also the communication you're giving out. Lenny was notorious for when he was the conductor of the New York Philharmonic. He was notorious for coming in and just wasting 20, 30 minutes talking about the vacation he went on, talking about his family, and people say waste, and maybe there's a time and a space for that. But like, here was the issue. He go in 20, 30 minutes, and the New York Philharmonic is on a tight schedule. It's all unionized, and those rehearsals are down to the minute, and you can't go over. That's against union policy. And so there's overtime charges, and he would always complain that, right, he'd get to the end of the rehearsal time and be like, no, we need more time. Well, where did our time go? And it's like, well, you used 30 minutes in the front to tell us stuff that was cute, but wasn't really important for us to do the job we need to do. And so now we're 30 minutes behind, and yeah, guess what? That's where we're at. And so we need to be careful to maximize the time that we have to be effective. Now, there's time where you need to be personal, where you need to be engaged in the lives of the people that you lead. But you got to make sure that you're not wasting that time, it's intentional. And that you're not doing it on a consistent basis, where all of a sudden then you're not able to perform at the level that you're capable of, and that you should be performing at, because you're not conducting from the podium. You're getting off the podium and having this time. And here's the other thing with the podium, that really actually is the crystal thing I want to communicate to you, that I see often. It's the difference again between a junior high orchestra and the New York Philharmonic. If you go to a New York Philharmonic rehearsal, so I was in New York studying um, when Kurt Mazur was there and Lauren Mizell. I think Lauren Mizell had just taken over in the middle of my master's degree. And Lauren, I went to a rehearsal with Lauren where uh, the guy conducts from memory, which is just crazy, just a savant. And I remember him, he never left the podium. He was just always there, and again, the violins might need to talk amongst themselves and work on some bowings and this, and he just just wait. And then okay, here we go. And sometimes he would only give them so much time. Like he wouldn't allow for them to dilly dally. It was like, let's go, let's rehearse. And so, but he gave them time to work among themselves. But he didn't. Whereas the junior high orchestra, I swear, junior high orchestra conductors are never on the podium. They're always down in the strings, grabbing a violin and let me show you how to do it. And let's go over to the timpani and let's choose the right mallet. And again, you need that in a junior high orchestra. You have players that don't really know what they're doing and they need direction. They need hands-on direction. They need assistance. Not in the New York Philharmonic. In the New York Philharmonic, you have hired the best of the best musicians in the world who know more than the conductor about their instrument. And so you have to treat them that way. I want to encourage you, are you treating your employees in a way that makes them rise up? In a way that honors where they're at with their skill and experience, but also calls them to play better, to be better, to grow and to continue to mature. A conductor does this by staying on the podium and letting people figure it out. Better to have your team experience failure and to learn from that failure and to continue to grow than to get off the podium and continue to do things for people. It's the greatest weakness of a leader who is yet to really empower and is yet to embrace their role as a leader. You're not leading if you're getting off the podium and doing. You're a doer, not a leader. Third thing, the final tool. We've got the score, we've got the podium. The final tool is the baton. This is the weapon of a conductor. What is the baton? The baton is just really an extension. Now, many conductors will use their hands. Leonard Bernstein used his hands, notoriously at the beginning of his career, even though Sergei Kusevitsky continually ripped him about it and said, use the baton. And so at the end of his career, he saw the value in a baton. And really the baton it's a lot clearer, it's a lot easier to see. It has a little more finesse, a little more, it would be argued, a little more finesse, a little more effectiveness in how you are doing what you need to do, which is give clarity, right? I need a clear downbeat. Where's the downbeat? Is it in my wrist? Is it in my fingers? Here it is. It's in the tip of the baton. It's boom, 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 bum, 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 ba dum, bum, bum, right? Where it's clear, it's out there. So, do you have a baton, right? And what does the baton do? It gives the downbeat. It keeps everyone together as far as, right, the rhythm, the tempo, the dynamics, right? We know if I want to slow down, we stretch. Or dynamics, right? Maybe this is quiet, maybe this is loud, right? You have all this power in this little instrument, an instrument without sound. Do you have a baton? Are you keeping the downbeat of your company clearly? What's your baton? Maybe it's a podcast you do internally. Maybe it's your meeting structures. Maybe it's a memo you send out. How are you keeping people together? How are you making sure then from the podium using the score that all that information from the score is being translated, communicated to the people that you're leading? What is your baton? What is your purpose with that baton? It's not just to wave it around wildly and, oh, it's like giving a leader a microphone. I have this microphone now. I'm just going to talk. One of the things I work on with a lot of leaders is you really have to be careful that your meetings don't become a place for you just to think out loud. Many leaders, if you look at like the disc profile, they're high D, high I, love to be around people, love to think out loud. But many people, and especially in a good sized company, many of the other executive leaders are more D, again, that dominant leader, but they're C. That they have that C personality, which is like I always call it the Excel chart. Like they like formula, they like structure. And so they're not think out loud. They're more of your contemplatives. They want to hear something and then they want to chew on it. And so that's why a lot of executive teams have conflict. It's because the key leader has a different personality type than the other key leaders around them supporting them. And you need that. You actually need, I think, a really solid organization has that kind of dynamic. Because if you have too many people with the DI, you just got way too much vision. Nothing's going to get done. And so, but if you have too much C, then you don't have vision. You don't have really a compelling destination to row to. You're going to be risk adverse. You're going to be right. We can go into this anyway. The point is, those two dynamics then make for it can make for some bad meetings where the key leader is there just kind of thinking out loud. The other key leaders are like, was that a real initiative? Were they just thinking? What am I supposed to do? What are the action steps from this? There's not a lot of clarity, a lot of confusion. It's why most meetings suck. So you've got to make sure as the leader that you are doing the work right in your office to mark up the score. You're coming out, you're standing on that podium, you're not getting into the weeds and trying to play the other parts, but you're staying on that podium so all eyes can see you. And now you can communicate with your baton all the work that you have done in that score. So, do you have a score? Is it clearly marked? Are you on the podium? Is it clear what your podium is? Is it clear where people will find you? Is it clear how you are going to communicate either the physical space or in the mental, emotional disposition? Is the baton clear? Do you have it ready to go? What are the channels that you're going to communicate? How are you going to keep everyone together? How are you going to do dynamics? How are you going to now here? You see, you have two hands, right? This is keeping the tempo, and this hand oftentimes is giving the dynamic structure, right? I'm conducting the strings to bring it down as I pay attention to the solo and the woodwinds, right? I'm giving to them while doing right. Is all these now we're conducting. Now we're actually getting into the true skills of a gifted conductor. So again, you have a score, you have a podium, you have a baton. I want you to chew on that. I want you to think about have you done the work in the score to get the markings, dynamics, tempos, phrasings? Do you understand? Have you reverse engineered the mission? Understanding the various departments. What are going to be the hangups? Like that's the other thing I look in the score. What are the hangups going to be? What are going to be the trouble areas with either tempo change or some of the notes that I go, that's going to be a problem area. The bowings and the strings, that's going to be a problem area. Like that's your job as the conductor to know the trouble areas ahead to lead well through them. Are when you go out, are you on the podium? Be honest with yourself. Where are you getting in the weeds? What's pulling you and distracting you off of that podium where you're not really leading well? That doesn't mean that everything's got to be a public performance. You can have intimate one-on-one conversations. You're going to, you should be, but you need to be on the podium. You need to spend the bulk of your time on the podium so that the organization can see you and can be led by you together. The baton then is going to help you lead both together and individual. The baton allows everyone to see what the tempo is, but it also allows you to tune your attention and give specific leadership to a section, to an individual instrumentalist, to whoever needs it for the piece of music to do what it needs to do. Sound amazing. Do you have the score? Are you on the podium? And are you using the baton effectively? Those are the tools of the conductor. I hope they've encouraged you to think about your leadership and to take actionable steps to become better tomorrow than you are today. My name is Seth Winterhalter, president of Halting Winter. If I can be an encouragement to you, have us out. Well, we do keynotes, we do workshops on this kind of thing to help your leaders lead and create healthier cultures in order to produce extraordinary results. And we'll see you next week for our webinar on saying no to balance, how to live a life integrated personally and professionally. Hope to see you then.